everybody, to Popcorn and Possibilities.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, we got a special treat for you. It's a nice little two-parter. We are planning on watching the July 4th movies, I guess.
Blockbusters. It's crazy to think that there were movies specifically made around the 4th of July
Yeah,
because that's
yeah.
not that's not a celebration or an observed holiday that you typically think of, I don't know, movies being about, but they
I don't
exist, so we're going to watch them.
yeah, I guess it's just the summer and that's
Yeah,
which like
yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying because it's like usually it's summer so people are outside,
hmm
but
Or like there'll be a scene with fireworks, and sometimes it's implied that it's the 4th of July, sometimes it's just there are fireworks.
right.
But the movies we're talking about have a pretty honed in focus on it
Mm.
being the 4th of July. So just interesting.
Yeah, yeah. The first one being Independence Day. Can't
A
get any
classic.
clearer than that.
Yeah,
So I say we just kind of jump into it a little,
let's do it.
because flip the script a little here, but also themes wise, I think there was a struggle between me and you trying to figure this movie out. I
Yeah.
would say the craziest thing that I looked up before was it's actually in the top 5 of highest grossing films of the 90s.
Really? I
Yeah.
honestly I could see that. I feel like these big action-packed summer blockbuster movies were
Mm,
a huge deal in the 90s. Whereas now, when you think a big blockbuster movie, you're probably thinking a Marvel or a superhero movie of some kind. But
right.
the 90s had your Mission Impossibles, Independence Day, big action movies. And it actually doesn't surprise me to hear that it grossed so well because that was telling of the times, I think.
Yeah, it was so huge. I remember I actually saw it in Ocean City, Maryland. I was like a really young
Wow.
kid. Yeah, and I had been begging my parents to see it, and we were on vacation, and it just so happened it rained, so obviously we can't go to the beach. And they like finally gave in and we watched Independence Day. So I loved it and I was obsessed with it for a while because I just loved aliens and all that shit. So but yeah, it is actually number 5, only beat out by Titanic, Jurassic Park, the first Star Wars, and Lion King. I mean, I had a feeling Titanic was 1 because that
Oh, yeah.
held that for a long time.
Jurassic Park doesn't surprise me either. I still love that movie. So I imagine it was pretty huge when it came out.
Do you think this newest one is going to be any good? I wanna believe it will be. I don't know
I
why.
I listen, I have a love of that franchise, but no, I really
No.
don't have much hope for it at all. I really don't. I'd rather set the bar just
Low.
astronomically low so
Mm,
that if it is decent, it
right.
will exceed my expectations. But I'm not expecting much of anything. Nothing, even out of the original trilogy, nothing lived up to the first one for me. So
Yeah, it's tough because I loved the first and the second one. I had them both on VHS.
the second one was good. Yeah, yeah.
It's good, but
It
it's
is a
got its
market
flaw.
step down, right?
Yeah, 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 and then the third one is just like, why
Yeah,
did you
they
even
they
bother?
lost me. They lost me.
So, Independence Day, knowing that, let's go into the ratings here. Rotten Tomato is a 68%. Popcorn is a 75, which I feel like is that the highest we've seen so far, rating wise? It's gotta
I
be pretty
think
close.
I think Pretty Woman might have been.
Higher?
No, it was close. It was a 68.
68. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
kind of jumping up a little bit.
10 Things I
Uh,
Hate About You might have been in the 70s. No, 69. You're right. I think that's the highest we've seen so far.
wow. Metacritic 59, user 7.0, and IMDb is 7 out of 10. That's pretty high. Mhm.
Pretty high, pretty high.
Yeah. Want to start off with the cast because that's pretty stellar
Stacked,
cast. Yeah.
stacked cast, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've got Will Smith and we've got Jeff Goldblum, who
Right.
we were just talking about Jurassic Park, so this was a very good tie-in.
Mhm.
I love Jeff Goldblum. I've always loved Jeff Goldblum, but he was in his absolute prime
Yeah.
in this era of he was the hot lawyer, the hot scientist, like quirky and nerdy, but also hot. I don't know. He has been doing things for me since the 90s, since the 80s, really.
Right.
I think some of the first movies I saw him in were technically 80s movies, but
Okay.
he is an example of somebody who kind of got typecast into these roles, but he's perfect for it. So I'm
Yeah.
not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. And Will
Yeah,
Smith was in everything in the 90s, everything. I mean,
he was the
across
action star.
genres, he was the action star of the 90s. He really was.
I mean, if you wanna say Tom Cruise, I mean, that would be also a close second, but, definitely Will Smith is, like, way up there. Um,
I think more of Will Smith because a lot of his movies were targeted, I feel, towards our demographic growing
true,
up because I mean
true.
he was the Fresh Prince of Bel Air for God's sake. We all grew up with Will Smith.
Mhm.
They would market his movies towards I feel like a broader audience, whereas your Tom Cruises, Bruce Willis was in a lot of action movies in the 90s, you know. Those were more like mom and dad's action stars, but
True.
Will Smith was for the kids. He was for us.
Yeah, so he was big. I Bill Pullman, for some reason, I always think of him as, like, a political leader of some sort.
Yes. Yes.
Him and who's James Rebhorn is another one. I always think of as, like, a political figure
Me
who's
too.
always a dick.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Um, who else we got here? Randy Quaid, another
Randy
one
Quaid,
who I
yes,
always
yes.
forget is Dennis Quaid's brother. Like,
I
they're
feel
just
like I exclusively know him as Dennis Quaid's brother.
they just, like, went on, like, 2 separate paths in my
Yeah,
mind,
yeah,
but
yeah.
any other name? Vivica Fox.
Vivica Fox was huge in the 90s. Yep. We got our Andrew Keegan
Yeah,
cameo.
mhm,
Joey from 10 Things I
right.
Hate About You made an appearance. It was very exciting for everybody. Goes to show these people they were shining in the 90s.
Right, right. What was your, like, first thoughts going into this movie?
I was hype going
Mhm.
into this movie because I remember this being the action movie that I remember from growing up. And I feel like, and maybe some of this was tainted by the feeling that everybody gets hype about this movie. I feel like everybody loves Independence Day, but admittedly, it had been years since I revisited this movie. I shouldn't even say revisited. I think I saw it once many, many, many years ago.
Mhm.
So it was almost like watching it for the first time for me because I had almost no memory of it other than aliens, you know?
Right. No, I
Aliens
agree,
and
yeah.
freedom. And that's about all I had going on.
I wanna say I've maybe seen it one other time after I saw it in the theaters. So, yeah, I agree. It almost felt like it was a brand new movie that I was watching again.
Right.
I was, also hyped because I just had the childhood feelings of, like, "Oh, this movie was so awesome back then," and I really like, when we were first talking about July 4th and we were like, "Oh, we have to watch Independence Day," like,
Right.
I was like, "This has to be the movie, right?"
Right, right. I was just going to say, usually this is where we kind of break down the plot before we dive into, you know, unpacking themes and tropes and you know, all that fun stuff.
Mhm.
But there's not a whole lot to unpack with this one, if I'm being honest. It is July 2nd. Uh, aliens invade. Earth's got to pull it together to prevail.
Mhm.
and we fight for our freedom on Independence Day. And ultimately, because it's a 90s movie, and I feel like all 90s movies for the most part had very upbeat endings,
Work out in the
of
end.
course,
Yeah.
we prevail, right?
Mhm.
Everything works out. And that's about the plot of
Right.
Independence Day. I feel like the first act of the movie is the chaos and the uncertainty of what would happen if you knew the planet was being invaded by an unknown species, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah, and it happens pretty fast.
Yeah, and it's everybody figuring out, like, do we evacuate? How do we counterattack? What is their plan of attack? What do we do? And then the second half is just bombastic
The White House blowing
chaos.
up, that was iconic,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
mhm.
explosions, quippy one-liners in fighter planes, um, the fat lady singing and smoking cigars. I don't know. A lot of iconic things happen, but there
Right.
that's really like the rising action is the first act where it's building up to what are we going to do in response to aliens coming to Earth. And
Mhm.
then the second act is just action on action and not a whole heck of a lot else going on there.
Yeah, and it's you kinda go between, like, the America and the president and, what he's thinking, and then it kinda pans to, uh, Steven Hiller, who's Will Smith's character, and, like, he's ready to kinda go to help out because he sees,
Yeah.
like, a giant alien ship. Uh, it does do, like, a quick slide to, like, Randy Quaid's character,
Yeah.
Russell.
Yeah.
I was like, "What the fuck's the point of this?" But, and then, then you have obviously Jeff Goldblum, David Levinson's character, who I think the
Yeah.
father is one of the best characters of the
He's
movie.
awesome.
Just
Yeah.
so random, but,
You know what I think this movie struggled from in a lot of ways? You get invested in Will Smith's character, you get invested in Jeff Goldblum and his dad.
mhm,
I guess you kind of get invested in the president because he's there on screen a lot, but they kind of fling a lot of characters at you in the beginning, and then
yeah,
you don't really see them again for
right,
most of the movie.
mhm,
So, like when Will Smith and Vivica A. Fox get married, that's supposed to be a very emotional, like, oh, they're doing it, they're making, but I really didn't feel anything because the almost zero time was spent on their relationship at all, other than the fact that he
yeah,
woke up at her house and then she got upset because he was supposed to have 4th of July weekend off, but obviously aliens. So he
yeah,
went to go deal with that. And there was that moment of please don't go. And then why don't you come with me? And then it turned into a shit show anyway. So it didn't matter. But,
I agree, that was a very weird,
right?
dynamic. Because, like, you had said it, his character was very, like, aloof, like, he just I don't and once he got to the locker room and he's like, "Oh, I was gonna break up with her," but then you had the ring, like, you were gonna get
Right.
engaged, so it's like, "What? What?"
Right. Well, then, I mean, if we're talking about scenes where I should have felt something but felt nothing,
Mhm.
president's wife dying,
Which made no
we
sense.
all right, so wait, before we even get to the complete lack of sense there,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
meet her in the beginning of the movie, and then they basically are like, shuffle off to Buffalo, lady, like, go to the secure shelter, whatever.
Mhm.
And then on her way there, I guess she's involved in this explosion that takes out, I don't
Yeah.
know, an entire city block worth of traffic, but she's seemingly fine.
Yeah.
She and Vivica A. Fox meet. They spend some time together. They're like chilling, I guess in the street, but she seems fine. And
Mhm.
then she's in her hospital bed, and she seems fine. And the president comes in to talk to her, and he says, "The doctors say you're gonna be just fine," with like this pained look on his face, and she
Mhm.
looks at him and says,
Right.
"Liar," and then she dies.
Yeah. Yeah, because the
They
doctor
never
just goes, "You're she's bleeding too much," and it's like, What? Okay, and then she
She wouldn't
died?
have made it this long if her
No.
internal bleeding was that. I can't. I really.
Yeah, that was a tough part,
But
and
you could tell they really wanted you to feel something. They were like, "We need to have a tearjerker scene in this movie," and that I think that was supposed to be it.
mhm.
I felt nothing except confusion because I couldn't figure out what was happening. It was a mess.
It
Mess.
feels almost like somebody came in the room and they're like, "All right, I got a movie idea." And they're like, "What do you got?" They're like, "Listen, hear me out. Independence Day, right? Fucking 4th of July, boom, aliens come, show up, we boom, boom, boom." And then they're like, "But where's the character?" He's like, "Ah, we'll throw in a love story here. Ah, we'll kill off this person's wife. It'll be great." Like there was not one thing that made sense in either of the relationships. I mean, I was I don't know, 7 when this movie
Right.
came out,
Right. Yes. Yep.
so but, like, I had no memory of, like, her being a stripper, Will Smith's wife, Vivica Fox,
Nor
Jasmine.
did I. Nor did I.
Like,
I think that the budgeting and the planning for this movie clearly went into practical
explosions.
effects.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm,
and all of the action and the alien plot line. Everything else was just kind of
mhm.
slapped together to give this an actual feel of a full-blown movie event, not just we're gonna watch shit blow up for 2.5 hours. Also, this movie is 2.5 hours long. I
Way
don't
too long.
remember it being that long. I really
Yeah.
don't.
No. And you know what? I kinda after watching it all, it makes me feel like everything after that started to build this cliche of like 90s explosions and all this
Yeah,
over the top stuff. It was just similar to like Scary Movie, where it just like started to make fun of all those movies,
yeah,
right? So then
yeah,
everybody started making fun of like how action films were made. So I mean, there's still a lot like this, but overall, like it kind of shifted from this, where this movie has literally every 90s cliche
yeah.
action moment that you could ask for.
Right,
Um,
right.
2.5 hours is way too much to not really have a plot or like a significant story. Like even the whole alien invasion part, it you say it was the world, but it really just kind of focused on
LA, New York, and DC.
yeah.
That's
And
it.
then how did like David Levinson, Jeff Goldblum character, how would he have any kind of clearance to get anywhere near the president whatsoever? It makes no sense. Another crazy storyline was the president and his and
Girlfriend or ex-wife or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it made the president not feel like the president. It just made him feel like he was just like I don't know, some sub-in character that they
A guy.
yeah, just a regular guy who was a pilot and is now leading the US, like, yeah.
What I think is interesting on rewatch,
Mhm.
it has to be said, we were obsessed with making movies about aliens in the 90s. Obsessed. And obviously, I'm not talking like Alien, which is one of the best movies ever made. That movie's from the 70s. But Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out in the 90s. Was ET 80s or 90s? I always forget. It's like right on the cusp, I
I'll
think.
take a look.
It might be 80s now that I think about it.
Well, Alien was 79.
Yeah, I knew the original Alien was
ET is
70s.
82.
82. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but in the decades of the 80s and the 90s, a lot of movies about aliens came out. And I think about Close Encounters and I think about ET. And those were fully developed storylines that incorporated what would happen if an alien came to Earth or aliens came to Earth, and what would they be hostile? Would they be friendly? Would they be neutral? What would that be like? But
Yeah.
they had plot lines and character development that really kept you invested for the
Mhm,
runtime of the movie. I
mhm,
think where this one kind of ended up losing me is I really only cared about Jeff Goldblum, and that's really only because I love him outside of this movie. And I was like, oh, Jeff Goldblum is in this. Obviously, he's going to kick ass. So I care what's going on with him. But I didn't feel invested in any of the characters or any of the plot lines that kind of went along with each individual character because there was no significant amount of time spent on any single one of those characters or plot lines.
Yeah.
Um, and like, is it a fun ass watch if you want to watch shit blow up and be like, fuck yeah, freedom, whatever? Sure.
Yeah.
It
I would say the
do I,
action's still there, yeah.
yeah, and they're really
The
not
special
special
effects.
effects. They're more practical effects, but they hold up. They look
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
And like, could I see watching that on the 4th of July with friends at a barbecue or something and having a blast? Absolutely. But am I going to go back and watch that movie on a random fucking Wednesday because I want to watch Independence Day? No, probably not. I really don't see that being a reality for me.
No. No, and it's kind of disappointing because I really had such a fond memory of this
Right,
movie,
right,
and
right,
but we had talked about this a little off air, but we're kind of seeing the first time where nostalgia has gone the other way, where I had all these expectations because of my childhood, but it's just like,
right.
no, it just wasn't. It wasn't
It
there.
did not live up to them. Yeah, no, I agree.
So,
I do think it's Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
do you feel like we're in nostalgia burnout?
I That's a really great question, and I I think in a way we are in nostalgia burnout in
Mhm.
that nobody has an original thought anymore.
Right.
Like, you and I have talked offline about Sinners and how much we loved Sinners and Bring Her Back and what a moving experience that was really. And part of that is outstanding filmmaking and acting and scoring and all of the things that go into making a movie great. But for me, part of it is also like, I've never seen anything like that before.
Right.
Maybe like Sinners, we've talked about things that we had callbacks to or it reminded us of. I'm not saying they are completely unlike any other movie that's ever been made, but
Mhm.
they are original and they do deviate from the movies that they draw inspiration from or that they remind us of. And I feel like we live in an endless sea of remakes and reboots and sequels no one asked for, like
Right.
Spaceballs 2 is coming out. Why? I don't
Right.
know. Who asked for that? I
Right.
didn't. I loved the original one, but I didn't need a second one all these
Malcolm
years
in the
later.
Middle.
Right. Like, it's shows, it's movies, it's everywhere. And I feel like it's nostalgia burnout because these companies and producers and directors and studios and whomever, they are relying on the nostalgia of our demographic and of their audience to get butts in chairs to make money off these intellectual properties. And where I struggle is, will I go back and watch Never Been Kissed or She's All That or 10 Things I Hate About You 100 times because they're nostalgic movies for me and they make me feel happy and they remind me of simpler times?
Right.
Yes. But if you told me they were remaking 10 Things I Hate About You to be like 12 Things I Hate About You, I'd be angry. I would
Yeah,
not want to
yeah.
see that movie because leave it alone. It doesn't need to be redone or refreshed. Let it be. Do something else. Do anything else. Just be original.
Mhm. It's tough because I feel like this is a lot of the entertainment business in general,
Yeah.
because they look at it and they go, "We could take a chance," say, for hypothetical, like a $200 million movie on something original, and there's really no known statistic, but, like, if we make Space Jam 3, there's, like, a specific number of millennial kids
Who will
that
go
are
see
gonna be
it?
like, "I need to see it." So you're not guaranteeing, but you're kind of gauging a bigger interest than you are if you just come up with an original idea. It's the same thing with, like, sports events and things. It's
Yeah.
like, listen, if things were to realistically change, people have to stop showing up, and that's how it changes. But
You know,
n people are gonna go regardless.
right. I have to give shout outs to two video essayists I very much enjoy. Shout out to Sideways and shout out to Lindsay Ellis because I'm going to reference a couple of things that they've talked about in some video essays they've done specifically related to the recent live action remakes of Disney films. And I think this is also a very relevant point to our discussion.
Mhm,
So, in talking about how these live action remakes, in all honesty, really are not that great, and they certainly are not as good as their animated counterparts.
mhm,
In talking about why they keep making them, it all goes back to exactly what you just said. They keep making truckloads of money,
mhm.
and it begs the question, how? If we watch these and we objectively say, this is not great, or I'd rather watch the animated original, why
Right.
are they continuing to make so much money and why are they continuing to be made? And both of these YouTubers came to the same conclusion, and I'm inclined to agree with them that there are two factors at play here. One of which is nostalgia. They know, the millennials and people in that age bracket who grew up watching these movies
Mhm,
are going to remember the love they felt for them, the emotional attachment they had to Disney and the Disney Renaissance and all of those movies in the 90s, and
mhm.
they're going to go see them. But the other factor at play is that a lot of people in that demographic have kids now,
Yeah, oh,
and
yeah.
their kids didn't experience the originals. So
Mhm,
this is a way for them to bring the love and the passion they had for these movies and you know, these princesses and IPs to their kids because this is a more relevant reimagination of what they grew up watching themselves. And I thought that was a fascinating and spot on
mhm.
observation because I do think that's true. And I do think and you could say that about Disney, you can say that about anything that gets rebooted. We we are human. We want people to experience and love what we love, and we want to remind ourselves of what we love and what brings us happiness. So I think
Yeah.
those two pieces, the nostalgia and kind of passing on the love of certain movies or characters or stories, is what makes these nostalgia bait remakes and reboots so successful.
Mhm.
But I personally am so burnt out on it. I just want to see new, creative, fun stuff. That's what I really want.
Yeah, I definitely agree on both those accounts. I love Toy Story, like, I can't wait for and hope Ellie's, like, loves Toy Story, like,
Yeah,
I can't help that, so I can definitely agree with that. It makes me also wonder when we were kids, right, with our parents were watching like, did they watch Independence Day and go like, "This movie is absolutely terrible," and then it was just like you were, like, 8, so you're like, "Oh, this is fucking awesome." But now being, like, older and you're like, "Oh, this movie, like, isn't as good as I thought." Like, is it an age thing? Because the new Disney remakes, like you said, it's for these, like, younger kids that like, you can see it. Moana is visually more stunning than, like, any movie of the '90s. Even, like, Frozen, it's visually, like, the colors are so bright and, like,
right,
beautiful. So, it's like, are these remakes really made for you? Or it's just, like, you feel the nostalgia and you wanna watch it and you want it to be just right. So,
right.
I don't know. At the end of the day, I am also feeling burnt out. I would like to see some more originality. If you're going to go with a reboot, like, don't cheap out on it. Get
Yeah,
somebody legit. Like, Star Wars, I would love to see Chris Nolan take that on and see what he does with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess rating wise, where would you go for it?
Uh, this is hard. This one's hard for me because objectively,
Mhm.
it's fun. It's got great effect.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm probably gonna have to go cloudy. And it gets cloudy and not overcast because I probably will watch this on the 4th of July and I'll have a great fucking time doing it. But um this is not a movie outside of that one day of the year, maybe, that I would go back to after watching it again. I just wouldn't.
I'm with you there because I really don't want to give it a cloudy, but I agree. Like if it's on at a party or something, like yeah, I'll probably watch a scene. I'm gonna go overcast. I just on
You're
a
gonna
higher,
go overcast.
yeah.
Well,
I know
did we flop
we
cloudy
flop.
and over?
Yeah, yeah,
So overcast is worse than cloudy?
yes.
Okay. All right.
Cloudy
All
is
right.
mid
All right.
range. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Cloudy is
Okay.
now 3 to
Okay.
3.9.
That's all
I'm
right.
gonna
That's where I
yeah.
wanted to be. Okay. Wow. Overcast.
I'm going overcast just because like I really I by the last like 45 minutes I was like checked out. I had texted
Yeah.
you like I'm gonna go to sleep. Like
Yeah.
I'm just I don't know. The whole like injecting a virus thing,
It's
their technology was thousands and thousands of years ahead of you. How did they fall for just that?
right.
And like Will Smith just gets into space and like learns how to fly this alien ship on the fly. I don't know. The special effects are cool. There's still like iconic lines. The speech at the end by the president is still like
Iconic.
memorable. Yeah, it's iconic.
Yep.
So I would say it's on the higher side of Overcast, like not the lower side.
I was stuck between the two. I just feel like it is such an iconic movie and it has glimmers. Like when Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith are in the ship together and they form kind of that camaraderie, that's pretty
Mhm.
endearing. Like they started to get me invested, but that's the problem is that happens in the last 30 minutes of the movie.
I think if this movie was remade today and they had this formula, I mean, I know that they made the 2016 one, which was absolutely bombed,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I feel like there's parts there, the actions there, the special effects are there. It's just like you said, there was too many characters that you could have kind of cut it down a little bit.
Focus on a core group and give me character development and storylines to get invested in these people. If you're hurling 25 characters at me and spending, I don't know, 5 minutes on each of them, I'm not going to care about any of them. I hate to break it to you, but it is what it is.
Eh, yeah, because Will Smith's girlfriend was not really likable. Her son was a pointless character. Will Smith was pretty erratic, I would say for the most part. Like
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum's character was good, but like the whole divorce with his wife over the
Yeah.
president, I didn't like that. And then even the president, like the whole wife's dying, like we touched on, was bizarre. But then, okay, she's dead, and your first decision is to be like, I want to fly a fucking plane into
Yeah.
outer space. What about your
Also,
daughter, who's
he
just
has a yes,
yeah,
he has a daughter that gets 3 minutes of screen time, I think, in the whole movie, and he seemingly could not care less about.
right?
Yeah, it's so, and even like the Jeff Goldblum's ex-wife and the president or whatever, we only know about that because of like a 2-second story that someone tells his dad about him punching the president.
Right. Right.
Well, they don't spend any time telling you anything about these people at all. You are
Mhm.
left to pay very close attention to like breadcrumbs that get dropped across along the way to
Mhm.
piece together who these people are and why you should care. It
Right.
it's very interesting storytelling, I'll say that.
Yeah. Maybe in another couple years they'll decide to reboot it again. I mean,
Stop. No, I can't. If they did,
huh?
who are you casting for your main characters? Let's focus on Goldblum, Will Smith, and the president, because I feel like those are the only three characters you spend any significant amount of time with.
Well, I think the obvious choice for Will Smith would be Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. Yes,
Yeah.
I had the same thought. We are on the same page. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. I agree.
Either that or you would go Boyega, the Star Wars kid.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
He would be, I guess, my second choice. For Jeff Goldblum's character, Andrew Garfield, maybe?
See, this is selfish. I want Pedro Pascal in that role.
Mm.
I don't know that he's ever played a role like that, but I don't really care. He fits the part. He's got that
See, I
hot,
could see him more
smart
as the
appeal.
president.
Really?
Yeah, if I was gonna, I mean, he wouldn't be my first choice, but I could see him more the president than I would as the smart
All
guy.
right. All
But
right.
hey, you're the casting director of the
We're
movie.
dream
That's it.
casting. We're
Yeah,
dream casting over
yeah,
here.
exactly. And the president,
That one's tough for me. I don't know who it's real. That one's very difficult for me.
um, Ron Swanson. I
Ross,
can't think of
Nick Offerman. Nick
Nick
Offerman.
Offerman. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 He plays the president, I think, in Civil War, the A24 movie.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
who would you go president wise?
I don't know. I'm really struggling with that one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm trying to think of who gives me like presidential vibes,
Right,
but I don't
right.
know. I'm almost thinking like Robert Downey Jr. I could see playing a
Interesting.
president.
Yeah.
Um, just because I see him as playing a good, like assertive person
Mm,
in power. And he looks very good in a suit. So
right. Right.
I'm grasping at straws here, if I'm being honest. I don't really I don't know. That's one like you said. I'd really Michael B. Jordan was an immediate thought for me, and Pedro Pascal was pretty quick for
Yeah.
me.
Mm.
For the Jeff Goldblum's character, but for the president, I'd really need to think. Um,
Also, I would probably tie in more of the world if we're gonna go that route
yes,
because,
yes.
like, the only we had like one or two lines where they're like, "Yeah, everybody's in agreement," and then after everything was over, you saw pyramids, kids in Africa and Australia, and they go, "We won." Like, what?
Yeah. I also think I think that was another thing that kind of pulled me out of the movie is like people get so tied to their own thought about what's reality, what's not reality, that we would never be able to organize the whole world in that short a period of time.
No
It
shot.
just would not happen.
When we were on lockdown, it was chaos. So this would be like the 20
I
millionth
mean,
degree.
I'm saying,
So,
yeah, yeah, and you can't it's hard to get people to come outside of their own way of thinking to see other vantage points or viewpoints. So to show in this movie that yes, we issued an evacuation order and everybody complied.
mhm.
Maybe when I was younger, I was like, yeah, that's exactly how the president said so.
Right,
Now
right.
I feel like it would exacerbate things if they were trying if there was any attempt to get everybody on the same page that quickly over such a admittedly polarizing topic, you know?
Yeah, it would take you literally having to go outside and seeing the actual spaceship for you to be like, "Okay, we're pretty much fucked here."
Something's happening here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, so I think that's our wrap up. Not bad, but,
Not bad. Not bad, but not
not
as great as I built it up to be in my head, I'll tell you that.
yeah, but, yeah, so we will be back.